last Sunday. In fact, probably at the very moment that we here in this sanctuary were remembering the workers at the call center in Rio Rancho where an armed man barricaded himself inside and threatened many. And as we were remembering the people wounded and killed when a gunman shot up a Colorado Walmart, and as we begged God again to bring an end to the insanity of such violence in our land, at pretty much that very moment, a gunman was walking out of the sanctuary of a Baptist church in Texas after shooting nearly 50 people who were gathered for worship. It was about 4 o'clock last Sunday afternoon when I first heard of it. And I have to tell you, I was just sick. I quite literally felt like I was going to throw up. One of the first details I heard about the shooting was that the 14-year-old daughter of the pastor was among those murdered. I thought about my own 14-year-old daughter. I thought about her sitting at the back of our sanctuary, pretending not to pay attention, and I wondered if her position there, halfway hidden by the bookshelf, would make her more or less vulnerable. I wondered what would happen if someone walked into this sanctuary aiming to make the world as dark as the thoughts inside their head. Now, these were not new wonderings for me. Just a few weeks previously, after that horrific massacre in Las Vegas, one of the members of our church family contacted me. They were upset over that shooting, and they wondered what would happen if they, like those 2 hotel workers at the Mandalay Bay, what would happen if they ever stumbled into a mass shooting situation. I was trying to help this person process the vulnerability that they were feeling, but to be honest, I just wasn't sure where they were going with this. And then they said, we have to be prepared, not to fight back, but to be ready. Like the early Christians in the Colosseum, ready to be martyred at a moment's notice. To remember as they did that to live is Christ, and that even to die is gain for us. I had to admit to this member of our church family that I'd been having some of those same thoughts, especially as it pertains to the possibility of an incident here. Should the unthinkable happen, I hope that I would have the courage to live my convictions to my dying breath, parting with my life nonviolently, as Jesus did, begging God for forgiveness for our assailant, as Jesus did, entrusting my eternal life to God, as Jesus did. And one last thing, I hope my last words can be, thank you. There's so much that is good. For the last few weeks, I've been reading devotionally, and I've been preaching from the 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th chapters of Matthew. I've been following as well from the companion lectionary readings from 1 Thessalonians, and I was struck this past Monday, as I was still reeling from that shooting in Texas, I was struck that both of those readings converged this week on the subject of the thief in the night. Those readings were about Christ coming like a cat burglar, stealing past defenses, breaking in, catching the homeowner unaware. But the problem for me is I read and reread those passages, and I really can't say if this was the Spirit of God at work or just my feeble brain playing tricks. But as I read and reread those passages, the words thief in the night kept morphing themselves into gun in the church. Several times before he died, Jesus told his disciples that he would be back. Believing him, His followers declined to make long-range plans. They put all of their energy into preparing for their end. All of the Apostle Paul's letters, for instance, were written with the second coming right there in plain view. Although I must admit that between 1 Thessalonians and Romans, that expectation dims a little bit. Those disciples of Jesus expected him to return soon, but then a decade passed. And then another. The people who had actually known Jesus began to die off. Pretty soon the stories about him were being told by the people who had known the people who had known Jesus. In fact, it could be fairly said that the only reason we have our biblical gospels at all is that someone finally worked up the nerve to say, there aren't all that many eyewitnesses left. We really ought to get this stuff written down. According to most scholars' best guess, Matthew's gospel was written about 40, maybe as many as 50 years after Jesus' death. His mother Mary was almost certainly gone on ahead by that time, along with the leading apostles, Peter and Paul, who had been martyred in Rome. The city of Jerusalem itself had been destroyed by the Roman general Titus while he was putting down a Jewish rebellion. At the time that Matthew crafts his record of the ministry of Jesus, the temple was in ruins, and God's chosen people seemed to have been chosen chiefly to suffer. All of which is to say, the Gospel of Matthew had a lot of explaining to do as it told the story of Jesus. And while the main purpose of Matthew's Gospel was to tell the story of Jesus the Christ, it had to do more than that. Matthew had to tell the story of Jesus to people who were frightened. He had to tell this story to people who were fearful of violence and tired of things the way that they were. People who desperately wanted to know whether Jesus' delay was part of the master plan or heaven forbid, whether the Lord Jesus had just gone missing in action. Was there hope for a world in a downward spiral? Was Jesus really coming back? Jesus certainly seemed to believe that he was. If you go home this afternoon and read the 24th chapter of Matthew for yourself, you'll see that he encouraged his disciples to be prepared, to be on watch, to keep alert. But the thing is, Jesus didn't say when exactly he would be coming back. I will return, he said, but only God knows when. The Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour, he said. No one will know, Jesus says. It will be like the days of Noah. People will be carrying on, living their lives, doing the stuff that people do. I mean, sure, they'll have the sense that things aren't right, that the world just can't keep going on the way that it is, but not until it's too late will they see how bad things really were. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know the day or the hour when your Lord is coming. But understand this, Jesus says, if the owner of the house had known at what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake. He would not have let his house be broken into. Our Lord's point is that just like a thief is never ever going to send you a text to see if now would be a good time to drop by, in the same way, the time and circumstances under which you will meet Jesus are likely to be a profound surprise to you. Like a thief in the night, the scriptures say here and in so many other passages. Like a thief in the night with a stocking cap pulled down low over his eyes with socks on his creeping feet so that you won't even know he's there. Until you wake up in the dark and sense that someone else is breathing over you. You know, if this has ever happened to you, whether it was your toddler child in the night, about to poke and see if you're awake, or if you just came home one afternoon to find your back door standing open and your television gone, Either way, you know what a troubling, what an unwelcome image of God this is. The idea that the Son of God could be anything like an intruder in the night. The idea that some holy stranger is going to go through your drawers and handle your things and look at the photos on your dresser and will know where your children sleep and what toys they take to bed with them. That violates one of our most precious illusions, that our homes are our safe places, a place where we can protect ourselves from the world and all its threats. But according to Jesus, this intruder is like a thief. Thankfully, not like a murderer, but it's a scary character nonetheless. He is someone with no respect for other people's boundaries. He sees the home security sign in your yard as a helpful clue to the kind of system he's going to have to disarm. He sees a door full of deadbolts as an invitation to try the window instead. If he's really good at what he does, there's just no way to keep him out. All he has to do is watch, and you will show him the way in. And so the real question is just what is this thief after? If this thief is who Jesus says he is, then he's not interested in your jewelry or your phone. He's interested in you. Although apparently not the daytime you. That is, he's not interested in the you most people see when you're out doing whatever it is that you do in the world. The you who is pulled together enough so that you can pass for normal. The you that makes it to appointments on times and pays the bills and makes plans and doesn't have a fit in the line at the checkout, and that you. Whatever else is going on inside of you, it's usually possible to manage it all, at least during the daylight hours, out in public. If only because everyone else around you seems to be managing too. But when you get home, when you come home and the kids are fighting and the dogs want dinner and the answering machine light is blinking so fast you can't count all those messages, assuming you still have one of those. We have one at our house still. And once you've dealt with all those things, once it's dark and you decide to call it a day, you're just going to quit even though the sink is still full of dishes and the clothes won't wash themselves. That's when you check the doors and turn off the lights and head to bed. And now, at that moment, that's when Jesus says you should watch out. That's when you should watch out for that thief, because now is when he is interested in you. When you think no one else can see. When you think that you are alone. If you were expecting him, he would not come. Kind of like the tooth fairy. But since you are not expecting anything save some uneventful hours of sleep, now is an excellent time for him to slip past your defenses and find you in your safe place. And why would a compassionate Lord do a thing like that? Well, you know why. It's because you are so well protected the rest of the time. Because you are so well insulated by distractions, entertainments, trivia, looking at your phone the rest of the time. He's interested then because this is the time when your guard is down. After years of steady practice, you have learned how to keep almost everyone and everything else at a safe distance. But any good thief knows that even you have to sleep. That's why he waits until way after dark. That is why he comes when you least expect him. because he knows how badly you need to be broken into and how hard you will resist otherwise. Nobody likes to change. No one wants to feel like they're out of control or like someone else has higher standards for them than they have for themselves. Like any other thief, this one is after your valuables, but unlike any other, this one knows what your valuables really are, and it's not your money or your iPad. It's your heart, your soul, your mind, your thoughts, your values. These are the treasures that this thief has his heart set on, and at no small risk. At no small risk to his life. Who knows what you could have under that pillow or how loud you can yell? Who knows what lengths you will go to protect yourself? It would be a lot safer for him to send you an email announcing that, ta-da, your prayers have been answered. I can imagine that on my screen now. Oh, look, it's from the Lord. It says, oh, remember all those times you prayed, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven? Well, good news, the email says. Your prayers have been answered. The kingdom will come Tuesday. It's 2:30 sharp. Just over 48 hours, the reign of God will be established. All will be revealed. And since you will have no further use for anything on earth, that email continues, you are hereby relieved from the need to protect it. Congratulations, you are free. You can let go of all your carefully guarded stuff. You can let go of your carefully guarded self. You can let go of the things that are on your to-do list and the things you don't want anyone else to know. On Tuesday at precisely 2:31, none of that will matter anymore. Everything good will be changed into light and everything else changed into fire. Can I guess what your reaction might be? I know what mine would be. I already bought plane tickets for the holidays. I have stuff to do. At some point, these children are going to leave my house, and Leslie and we're going to retire, and it's going to be great. But I really wanted to see who else Mueller was going to indict. I thought I would have more time. Couldn't I have a little more time, Lord? There are people I need to say goodbye to. There are things I need to straighten out. Lord, have you seen the inside of my fridge? Can I at least clean that out? But know this. If the owner of the house had known at what time the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. Wouldn't let it happen. This is why God is not sending you emails or texts or even registered letters. This is why Jesus will come back like a thief in the night, so that we will not have time to lock him out. As long as we are successful in protecting the lives we built for ourselves, we will never know what a curious thief this really is. This thief who comes to give and not to take. If we could ever once handle our fear of his intrusion, if we could ever once let him in to do his work, then we might find him emptying his pockets instead of filling them, giving us so much more than the poor little piles of stuff that we have spent our lives protecting. The real threat is not what's outside the door. The real threat is inside us. In the misplaced fears, in the deeply buried shames, in our misguided defenses, in the ways we cling to our misspent lives. The real danger is in the notion that a life without Christ is worth protecting at all. I'm going to say that again. The real danger is in the notion that a life without Christ is worth defending at all. The great reward of knowing Christ is that whenever it comes and under whatever circumstances, we can face our end with joy. With joy instead of fear. And this, I think, is such an important word to us. Courage emerges not from owning weapons or increased security, but from enhanced spiritual maturity. These days of senseless violence call for people of faith. Because people of fear make poor decisions. They overreact. They lash out. They retreat. People of faith, on the other hand, keep a cool head. They keep loving. They engage the world as it is and not as they would have it be. They are not blind to or bewildered by the evil in the world, but they know that their lives without Christ are worth nothing. But that with Christ we have all we need. We are all we need. We don't have to be afraid. This is amazing good news for us. And the good news is that because Christ lives, we live. Because Christ lives, we live. No matter the threat, no matter the circumstances, no matter what comes bursting in the door. We don't have to be afraid. Joy, not fear. Joy, not fear, can be our first response to a world gone mad. To live is Christ. Even to die is gain. No matter what happens, God's holy thief will claim us as his own. There is absolutely nothing to fear.